An engineer is a problem solver. Wherever there's a challenge, an engineer will always find a solution to those challenges. Even where the sciences fail, there are areas where science has failed. Science has not given answers. Engineers will always find a way out. I will give a typical example. Let's take something very fundamental. Fluid flow. When liquids or air or any other fluid flows in a pipe, we recognize two major regimes: laminar flow, turbulent flow. Laminar flow, one layer is flowing over the other layer. There is no mixing between those layers, isn't it? When Reynolds number is below 2300 in a pipe, you have laminar flow. When Reynolds number are 10,000 and above, you have turbulent flow, isn't it? The mathematical modeling of these two, laminar flow has been modeled more than 200 years ago by two great scientists, one in France, one in the United States, but they came with the same solution. Those second-order partial differential equations, we know them. The famous Navier-Stokes equations. We teach undergraduate students these equations every time. These equations, we know, have only modeled laminar flow. Nobody operates his machines in the industry under laminar flow. If you have a reactor, you run it under turbulence. If you have a heat exchanger, you run it under turbulence. Because turbulence gives you higher transfer coefficients, whether heat is being transferred or mass is being transferred. You get maximum under turbulence, isn't it? Yet, there is no equation to describe turbulence. Scientists are yet to do that. 200 years after the famous Navier-Stokes equation, we are yet to get partial differential equations for turbulence. Yet turbulence is the oldest phenomenon in nature. At the beginning of time, there was a time when there was no time. There was a time when there was no space. No space, no time. That was the beginning of turbulence. There was only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No malaika, no human beings, no earth, no universe, nothing except Him. And He decided to create the universe and its contents so that the nature there will recognize Him and worship Him. That was what the scientists call the Big Bang. They claimed there was matter created, but then they misunderstood the whole thing. They didn't want to recognize Allah. They said there was antimatter. That is if you ask a scientist what is antimatter, it doesn't make sense. They said if you bring the matter and the antimatter back, they will give you zero. Because they didn't want to recognize Allah Ta'ala. But we do. When that Big Bang occurred, the first phenomenon there was turbulence. Movement of gases in high speed. They created the different galaxies that we have, millions of stars all over, including the Milky Way, which we belong to, including the solar system. The sun is the closest star to us. We see it so huge because it's the closest to us. And the universe is still expanding. If you go into space, Time you are measuring with your clock dilates. Space also dilates. That's the essence of Einstein's theory of relativity. Whatever you measure is relative to your own speed. If you approach the speed of light, the distance you measure will be different. The time you measure will be different. I don't want to go into that. It's another topic altogether. I'm bringing this to show our turbulence, which is the beginning of everything. Up to today, science has no solution to it. But engineers have discovered a solution. And the solution is simply those equations that we use in our design. Correlations. Engineers run experiments across different Reynolds numbers, across different other property numbers, Prandtl, Biot, Nusselt numbers, etc., different ranges. And they came up with correlations to describe turbulence. Daitos-Boelter equation is one of them. We teach students that in heat transfer. Nusselt is equal to 0.023. Prandtl raised to what? 0.833. Reynolds raised to 1/3. Then the ratio of viscosity follows. If your fluid is very viscous. They will tell you this equation is applicable within a range of Reynolds numbers. Because those who did those experiments carried the experiment within those range of Reynolds numbers. Engineers have given us a solution. The only theoretical equation I know on turbulence was the one developed in the 1950s by Kolmogorov of Moscow State University. But even that equation can only give what they call Kolmogorov length scale. Meaning the size of your turbulence. Is it in a teacup or is it a Katrina somewhere? That's all it measures. Not a modeling of what's happening inside. So engineers, we have always brought solutions. I don't know why Nigerian engineers are sleeping. Nigeria is grappling with a lot of challenges. We are not seeing any serious solution coming out of our faculties of engineering. What went wrong and what's wrong with us? We have to wake up. A lot of researches are being done. A lot of inventions are being done. Inventions are not innovations. Inventions are not innovations. An invention can become an innovation if it hits the market, as you said, if it hits the economy, if the industry adopts it, if it makes economic sense. Otherwise, we're just gathering, equipment all over, littering the space, writing journal papers, getting our professorial promotions. And the economy is still lingering in very serious challenges. We have to wake up to this. This to me is the summary of my paper. But I'll go through the slides. Now, the first slide, next please. Nigeria's industrial crossroads. The Vice Chancellor quoted the GDPs. Industry manufacturing just 9.2%. Is very low. Our dependence on oil is also creating a lot of challenges, vulnerability because of the volatile global oil market. This limits capacity. The next one, please. We must therefore diversify the Nigerian economy. Next. From oil dependence, you see, what makes, if, for example, you create an equipment in your faculty, in the first place, do not do research without consulting the end user. Somebody will talk on this anyway. You must engage the industries in Kano. What are their challenges? How many times has the dean and the HODs visited those industries in Kano? I should ask that question. How many times? We must engage them, know their challenges, see how to address that. 80% of the industries in Kano have already closed down in the last 20 years. Some have moved to Lagos. Some have moved to Ghana. Why? We need to find out. And as engineers, bring out solutions to those challenges. That's the main problem for our research. We operate in silos. We don't reach out to the end user. And at the end of the day, whatever we produce continues to stay in our faculty shelves. We therefore need to interact with industry so that we can do research that makes sense. These are all part. Nigeria is greatly blessed in agriculture. We need to leverage on that. Malaysia came here in the 1960s. Tuanku Abdurrahman, the Prime Minister, visited Tafawa Balewa around 1963. He was taken to Benin, and he saw the palm oil plantations, and he asked for samples from Nigeria. They took those samples to Malaysia. They improved on them, and by the time I was teaching in the University of Malaya, Malaysia was in charge of 55% of the world traded palm oil. And they got their samples from Nigeria. Not only that, the beta carotene, which gives palm oil, is red color. They extract it, send it to the pharmacy industry. There are certain oleochemicals which are very good natural lubricants. They extract it from the palm oil. They only leave the triglycerides, package them in bottles and sell it to the world. Nigeria has been sitting on palm oil for a very long time without realizing those values. Asia has now come and picked it up, and now they are growing very fast. We have other products, solid minerals, etc. We have policies in place, paper policies, most of them. We have institutions and agencies on ground. We have universities and polytechnics in hundreds. Yet, Nigeria is yet to reach the promised land. The next one. We have failed to reach the promised land to make Nigeria self-sufficient. Today we are importing almost everything we consume from China. Even the textiles we are wearing is from China, most of it. Anytime we wear a cloth from China, take note, you are helping to keep employment of youth in China, and you are denying Nigerian youth employability. We need to, at least, the clothes we are wearing in Nigeria, we must revive the textile industry. This is my point. Kano and Kaduna used to be the hub of textiles. Kaduna textiles at one time, all of them closed down due to the cost of heavy oil. At that time, it was selling at 40 naira. It rose to 80 naira per liter. They couldn't afford it because when they produce with high energy cost, they end up not competitive. Prices of products imported from China became cheaper. That way they had to close down. The same thing happened with Dangote, with the Bachita Sugar Company. I did my IT in the 1970s. When Dangote was allowed to bring in sugar without import, without any tax, the price at that time, Bachita was selling sugar for 3,500. Dangote Sugar was selling for 3,000. So Bachita Sugar Company had to close down. The same thing with many other industries. So we must therefore change the way we do our things so that Nigeria can at least be self-sufficient. The next one, please. The industrial crossroad. In this paper, we shall attempt to find out what went wrong, to make an attempt on solutions, and to propose sustainable industrialization midwife by engineers. I shall also critique some of the current status quo, but please, and I please, take it in good faith. Yes, I will criticize a number of the government agencies, and we have a former minister here sitting with us, but it's being done in good faith, and I believe I'm fully protected standing in an ivory tower like Bayero University. Go to the next. But let me start with some good news. It's not everything that is bad about Nigeria. There are some good news. We better start with that. You could see how emerging technologies are being applied by some private sector industries, AI, blockchain, renewable energy, etc. They are reshaping processes and supply chains in some companies, offering new avenues for efficiency and innovation. Specific industries like Dangote Cement, Nestle Nigeria Limited have achieved significant cost reductions of 15 to 30% through strategic adoption of robotics, the Internet of Things enabled predictive maintenance. If you work in industry, breakdown maintenance is a very bad practice. You don't do your maintenance until the equipment breaks down. It's a very bad practice. So you can do predictive maintenance by deploying AI, IoT, etc., so that you can be able to predict before it happens. SME growth is also on the increase, in spite of the very unfriendly financial environment, high interest rates, dwindling value of the naira, the new tax hammer, etc. SMEs continue to grow in Nigeria in the last few years. They are now accounting for about 80% of the economy. To me, these are good news. And this shows the resilience of Nigerians. The next, the energy challenge. The greatest challenge to Nigeria's industrialization is energy poverty. Nigeria's per capita electricity generation is one of the lowest in the world. In 2006, exactly 20 years ago, while I was in the University of Johannesburg, I published a paper. I compared Nigeria, Mali, Egypt, and South Africa. And I propose solutions. If you look at my second most cited paper, if you go to Google Scholar, Nigeria at that time was 25 watts. The same thing with Mali. South Africa, 270 watts. You can see the difference. More than 10 times. Egypt, 400 watts. Today, Europe and China is about, on the average, 1,000 watts. If you do the calculation now, 5,000 megawatts transmitted by TCN divided by a population of 230, you get 22 watts. From 25 watts 20 years ago, we have dropped to 22 watts per capita. Nigeria cannot industrialize this way. We must address this energy poverty. The good news is electricity is now in the concurrent list, just like education. We don't need to wait for the federal government to give us power. State governments, private sector can generate their own electricity, can distribute it, can even sell it when they get the approved license. This is a very good development. We need to cash on that. The only state that has taken this seriously is Lagos State. They are already establishing hundreds of megawatts power plants to add to what they are already having. I know you are aware that Lagos consumes 60% of the 5,000 megawatts transmitted by TCN. That one is known. 60%. Kano gets only 50 megawatts. With your population, with your industries, every every power generated on the national grid has to go to Oshogbo. From Oshogbo, they distribute it. Lagos consumes about 3,000 of that 5,000. That's why every industry is moving to Lagos. Not only that, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, MAN, the statistics I have about 4 years ago, they were generating 13,000 megawatts, almost triple of what the TCN is transmitting. And this entire 13,000 megawatts, captive power is what they call it, is consumed in Lagos and Ogun states. That's why Kano will continue to deindustrialize. You can't run Kano on 50 megawatts. Look at the population of Kano. Divide that 50 with your population. You may end up with just about 2 watts or 2.5 watts per head. Even the roadside welders on Opal cannot perform with this low power supply. We must address this frontally. A friend of the former honorable minister, Professor Zulum, I spoke to him recently. He said he has put about 5 or 10 megawatts for Borno. I told him this is too low. Borno requests nothing less than 200 megawatts. Kano requests about 1,000 megawatts. The AKK gas pipeline is going to deliver. It's a great project of the former president. It's yet to be completed. I wish he had completed it before he left office. Unfortunately, they split the contract into 2. That was what caused the problem now. The Chinese were ready to fund AKK 85%. But they wanted to give contracts, so they split the contract into 2. 2 companies, one will do it up to Abuja, another will take Abuja to Kano. If AKK comes on board, 3050 megawatts will be generated. If it comes on board, we should start thinking of establishing IPPs, independent power plants, using the gas. If AKK is not coming, why don't we connect a pipeline from Niger? There is gas in Niger. Bring the gas to Kano, generate power, export this power if you like, even up to Niger. Revive the industries. Those that migrated may even come back to Kano. I'm happy one of us here sitting with us is a gubernatorial aspirant, and we pray that Allah will make it easy for him. I think this is a very important area that he must do for Gombe State. Our northern governors must sit up and bring power to the people. If they do not do anything, even if they do not do anything, they are not doing much on security. I don't say they are doing nothing. They are not doing much. If they can bring power, even the insecurity will be addressed. Young people will have employment. Agriculture will be processed. Tomato will not be lost. 40% of our tomato is lost. It will be processed into paste. Kayangwari will stop taking them to Lagos. We'll make sure we process them here. All these cattle we are taking in trailers to Lagos and Aba, we'll process them and put them as canned meat, so that we take them to other parts of the country so that we can export them to the world. Industry will be revived and young people will be employed and insecurity will vanish. The next one, please. Renewable energy. Well, this is what it is. When we generate electricity, we should try to do what they call captive power. Those in electric engineering understand what that means. You generate it, you put it on a mini grid. Yes. Don't put it on the national grid. The national grid collapses almost every month. What a big shame. In spite of this new association, new organization, NISO, is still collapsing. I spent 2 years in Malaysia. I remembered there was only one time we received a notice of many days that there will be power outage for 2 hours. I asked them, what is your reserve margin? They said 40%. 40% reserve margin means power generation capacity 40% above the requirement of the nation. I told that gentleman, developed countries are putting only 10% reserve margin. They told me, in 1995, there was a horrible blackout. The government said, even though the company Tenega Nacional was owned by the government, they said any industry that had issues with that power outbreak, let them take Tenega Nacional to court. Tenega Nacional was taken to court. They lost a lot of money, and that made them to sit up and created 40% reserve margin. Even if power plants fail, 40% reserve is waiting. And they'll always give you notice. So, generate power, please. Professor Pantamisa, do not put it on the national grid. Create a mini grid for Gombe State. Kano should do the same. Create a mini grid. We are already seeing mini grids in Kaso Sabangari. These are IPPs, 500 kilowatts generators supplying the different shops. Instead of small, engine and tailor, I pass my neighbor, they call it, polluting the environment. I learned there are small IPPs within the market. They generate the supplies to shops and they charge you. If we generate this power, we should never put it on the national grid. The law allows that. We should create mini grids. We should supply industries, educational institutions, hospitals, and other areas of economic activity. The next slide. And we have this Belt and Road Initiative, 85% finance. Even today as I speak, China is ready to provide that. The next one. And one of the solutions to our energy challenge is renewable energy. Be it solar, wind, or biomass. We have both, as well as mini hydro. The mini hydro in Jos, NASCO, has been operating for almost half a decade, half a century, supplying reliable power to those industries around Jos. I think it's about 40 megawatts hydro. Why don't we generate the same power with all the dams we have all over the place? The next. Yes, Nigeria is endowed with high solar radiation, fairly good wind regime, and very rich in small hydro. We also have a lot of biomass. All this shallow gona that we burn before the farming season begins, they can be used to generate electricity. Biomass can be converted directly into electricity through different means. You can also produce even petrochemicals from those, because once you produce synthesis gas, you are good to go. You can produce methanol, you can produce urea, you can produce many other things. It hurts me anytime I see biomass being burned in the farms. The next one. Yes, this I've already mentioned about our textiles, how they have collapsed due to lack of power. Yes, this is a report in 1983. I think Professor A.T. Suleiman was a member of that committee. In 1983, I joined the Sokoto Energy Research Center, Center for Renewable Energy Research. And why did they set up that center? Because of the report submitted in 1983, early 83. The report stated that if 0.1% of the solar radiation falling on the landmass of Nigeria is converted in an efficiency of just 1%, it will more than meet the total energy needs of Nigeria. Conversion efficiencies are now in excess of 20%. But we are yet to implement that as we speak. Next slide. This is the level of solar radiation. In the north, we have very high radiation. Even in the middle belt, we have it. Even in the south, there is some level of radiation, more than what you get in Europe. The next. I strongly recommend the use of renewable energy to change the energy narrative in this country. Small hydro, we have rivers all over the place. We can generate power, we can use the water for irrigation at the same time. Next, yes. And we can get back our industries. The multiplier effect is really limitless, and we can bring Nigeria back on track. The next is about policy. A lot of the policies in Nigeria are policies on paper. All right, let me round up. They are policies on paper, with due apologies of those who promote these policies. But policies have worked in other places. 1958, Nigeria and Korea were at the same level of development by all indices. At the end of the Korean Civil War, 1958. I don't know that there's anybody one day Kedawayo in 1958 here. I was born in 1958. Anyway, I cannot remember the end of the Civil War. But Nigeria and Korea, we were at the same level. Look at what has happened in the last over 60 years. Korea has created innovations. Samsung, the phones that you are holding there. LG, the television and air conditioners. Hyundai cars. Hubo robots. Many products are in the world. The world is buying from Korea. Up to today, Nigeria doesn't have a single product that's in the world market. Not even in the Nigerian market. Somebody told me, no, there is a pounded yam making machine. Even that pounded yam making machine, it was taken away from us by Japan. It is being produced in Japan and other Asian countries. And they are exporting it to Nigeria. And I'm blaming us engineers for this gap. We really have to sit up to our responsibility. We have the Nigerian Industrial Revolution Plan that aims to move our GDP to 10% by 2030. Yes, our GDP, good news for this government, GDP growth as measured by, what is the name of IMF? Nigeria is among the top 10 in growth. 2 weeks ago, they released the statistics. Of course, many people don't trust IMF or World Bank or International Finance Corporation. But that's the statistics released. And it's a positive sign that Nigeria is improving. But the point we are raising here is 10% may not be a tall order. China achieved in excess of 10%. Malaysia at one time hit 11, 12, 13%. So 10% is doable. We are only 3 years or 4 years to this target of 2030. Let's hope and pray that that target is achievable. We have another policy document, NSTIR, that intend to improve on STEM education, develop local technological capabilities, etc. Yet we are yet to see any innovation since its inception. There's the proposed Tech Innovation Fund, $500 million to support SMEs in tech areas and streamline regulatory processes. We pray this will not be another end power. The next one, challenges, engineering challenges. I've been given, yes, notice to quit really, so let me do it quickly. Now, engineering infrastructure, Naseni is one key pillar of building engineering infrastructure in Nigeria. In 1990, before I left for the UK, I was invited to be a member of that committee that brought about the creation of Naseni. I only attended one meeting, and I left for my PhD in the UK. Naseni, if it had been given the necessary leadership, could have transformed Nigeria in the last over 30 years, 35 years. Yes, Naseni produces claims to locally adapted technologies such as the 14-inch laptop, the electric keke, etc., including assembly of photovoltaic solar cells. But the solar cells that they assemble somewhere in Nasarawa State, they are not, you cannot sell them in the market because the price is much higher than the ones being imported into Nigeria from China. So something is wrong somewhere. Next slide. There is this innovation ecosystem which I think has failed because we are yet to see a single innovation coming from MBTI. They collaborate with organizations like the World Intellectual Property Organization and the NSC to protect intellectual property. Even the registration of the patents is neither with MBTI nor with NOTAP. Patent registration is in the Ministry of Trade, a department they call commercial law. That is a misplacement, really, of registration of patents. There is what they call technology adoption, whereby we use AI, renewable energy, and drone technology, aligning with Mr. President's renewed hope agenda for national development. These are largely statements of good intentions. There is issue of youth empowerment from MBTI, and what I'm praying is we need to walk the talk. Let's move a little bit faster. RMRDC has been around for almost 4 decades or 4 decades at least. Unfortunately, RMRDC law itself is faulty. The law that established RMRDC primarily to stem the tide of importation of raw materials. The law stated that a portion of the tax of imported raw materials would be paid to Raw Materials Research and Development Council as running cost. In other words, if they reduce importation, their income will reduce. That's why you see that they are not doing that assignment. Nigeria is still importing almost everything. The law itself is faulty. So this is the quagmire they are facing on import substitution. They have also done a lot of pilot plants. Even in my former institute, NARIC, we have one. In Bayero University, in ABU, there are so many of them all over the country. Yet none of them has seen the light of the day, I mean in terms of commercialization. It's not enough you just create a process. You need to engage the industry, the end user. You need to also create something that's economically viable. If I bring a machine which takes in 100 megajoules or megawatts of exergy and bring out 90 watts of exergy, it doesn't make economic sense. What's exergy? I'm asking engineers, energy engineers. Do not Google it, please. Mechanical engineers call it availability. Energy is composed of 2 things: exergy, that which can do work, and energy. that which you have to throw back to the environment. So if I bring a machine that takes 100 and gives me 90, nobody will use that machine in his house or anywhere else. Whatever we create in our faculties should make economic sense. That's why I said, let's engage the industries in designing those researches. And that's the challenge of Raw Materials Research and Development Council. A lot of pilot plants, no private sector is interested in taking them because they have not been properly optimized. At the moment, I think an economist is leading that agency, isn't it? This is an agency which should be led by engineers. Just like NAFDAC, they insist that a pharmacist must lead it. Our Quran should insist that NASENI, RMRDC, and a few other agencies must be led by engineers. Overcoming barriers, the infrastructural and skill gaps. There is a very serious skill gap across the country. The famous Dangote refinery in Lekki. This is a refinery which, if you are going to write the 7 wonders of the modern world, you must include it. The largest single train refinery built anywhere in the world. But it was delivered by imported Indian skilled labor, 11,000 of them. I'm not blaming Dangote for doing that. I'm blaming our educational system for not producing the qualified welders, pipe fitters, mechatronics technicians, etc. Our education system has failed with the importation of these 11,000 Indians. Our educational system policy stated what? Functional education. What makes education system functional? Skills and entrepreneurship. We are delivering graduates without skills, without entrepreneurship. So there are very serious skill gaps that we must address. Next slide. There's the African free continental opportunity, which Nigeria should lead. We in Sassanet, we are working towards an African skills passport, ASP, so that a young man with a skills qualification in Nigeria can move across the whole continent of Africa and take up jobs, instead of allowing Chinese, Indians to take over the labor market in the skills ecosystem. This provides a lot of opportunity for Nigeria, including digital technologies. We must leverage on this to rebuild our education system. We must expand our regional market access under the AFCFTA. I know Mr. President is very happy, but we must support his happiness by rejigging our education system. The regional market is there for us. If we don't sit up, other African countries will take the opportunities. Already ECOWAS is doing that. Go to any good construction site. The best finishers, POP tilers, are from Benin and Togo, not from Nigeria. Our education system is still failing. So this is what we intend to do. In conclusion, Mr. Chairman, let me not take too much time. Nigeria stands at a pivotal moment, poised to leapfrog into Industry 4.0 through technology-driven manufacturing and strategic economic policies, if our governments and the private sector can work closely together. Energy poverty remains Nigeria's most important, the most serious impediment to industrialization. Success hinges on an agile policy making, sustained infrastructural investment, and nurturing inclusive innovation ecosystems. Engineers must rise up to this challenge by championing these vital interventions and make Nigeria the hope of a new Africa. An Africa that is self-sufficient, resilient, and once again, the global hub of knowledge and innovation. Africa was, in any case, educated before Asia, before Europe. The first 3 universities in the whole world, I will repeat this, you know it, were all in Africa. Karawayun University in Fez, established in the year 859 AD, first millennium. The Al-Azhar University in Cairo in the year 970 AD. And in Black Africa, the Sankore University in Timbuktu in the year 984. These were the first universities in the world. The greatest scientists of Europe came to Africa to study. The first medical degree was awarded in 1207 in Fez. The first French Pope, Sylvester II, studied in that university. When he went and became the Pope in the year 999, he introduced Arabic numerals into Europe, replaced Roman numerals. The first person to draw the world of the map, the map of the world, was a product of that university, Sharif Idrisa. He drew the map of the world, the map of countries, the map of cities. And the word in English, address, taken from his surname, Idrisa. Ibn Battuta, he covered over 120,000 kilometers, more than Marco Polo. They were all Africans. Sankore produced scholars. The Islamic education system here in Nigeria and many other West African countries were all from Sankore. What I want civil engineers to go and study in Sankore is those tall buildings, there is no AC, there is no fan. If it's hot outside, if you enter, it will be cold. If it's cold outside, if you enter, it will be warm. Simply because our great-grandparents understood thermal conductivity. Entirely built of mud, just like the Gobaro minaret. I've been warned to leave immediately. So finally, Mr. Chairman, engineering, innovation, skills, smart policy, and energy, this is what will lead Nigeria to a sustainable industrial future. Finally, I wish you a fruitful conference deliberations. May God bless you all. And I would like to inform the Honorable Minister, the slogan in the MBTE has shifted a little bit. It was skills, not degree in the past. We have accepted your thesis. It's now skills, not just degrees. The federal government is allowing us to start degree programs very soon in some selected polytechnics, Yaba, Kaduna, and a few others. And we said, let us adapt what Pantami proposed, just was added. Thank you very much, and may God bless you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Assalamu alaikum. To Akram Kallah. MashaAllah. MashaAllah. MashaAllah, VC. MashaAllah. MashaAllah, Dean. To Registrar. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Bismillah.
The erudite guest keynote speaker, I want to actually, I was asking them to stop you or else you will be here till the evening. Because I know what you will say and what you will do when you have a microphone. And we agree with you, the presentation is enriching, and I am sure that this is going to crave the organizers to engage in their communique or
Okay, sorry, yeah. Okay.
Most of the things you have said is going to form part of it. We are going to actually see more of Bugaje when you go to attend his lectures.